Hey class. Okay, so today we're going to discuss the historical context of To Kill a Mockingbird. So the first thing to know is Jim Crow laws. So from the 1880s to the 1960s, most states enforced segregation through the Jim Crow laws. Through these laws, legal punishment could be imposed on people for having contact with members of another race. So these Jim Crow laws are what cause things to happen in pictures you see, such as the different water fountains for black and white people, different restrooms, and different schools. These Jim Crow laws were so strong that you couldn't even walk on the sidewalk with a white woman if you were a black man. You would have to walk into the street. So there was also the KKK. So after the Civil War, the Ku Klux Klan was formed as a secret society that promoted white supremacy using violence and terrorism to undo the gains that former slaves had made. However, after the 1920s, the KKK was no longer secretive about their work, and public violence against blacks, including lynching, became common occurrences. So the KKK became a very violent organization that was very prevalent throughout the South, especially in Alabama. They had a habit of attacking and lynching black men, burning crosses in their yard, just trying to scare them in general. Also during this time period was the Great Depression. It affected the South very hard. Seemingly everyone was stuck in poverty, and discontent grew in both black and white people's minds, which further led to racial tensions and violence such as the KKK. So in all of this is the setting of To Kill a Mockingbird. So you have the Jim Crow laws, the KKK, and the Great Depression, and is set in a small town in 1930s Alabama in the heart of all of this issue. So some info about the author. She was born in 1926 in Alabama. When she was 5, there was a trial where 5 black men were accused and found guilty of raping 2 white women. This trial was widely criticized by lawyers throughout the country and the world for being very biased in their selection of a jury and their ultimate decision. The novel was written in 1960, and it helped spur the civil rights movement, which was already starting to take effect. So the civil rights movement, it had been an underground movement that became very widespread in the 1950s and the 1960s. So the first major win for civil rights was Brown versus Board of Education, which said that you could not segregate schools. So this was the beginning. Rosa Parks occurred in 1955. You should know the story about it. She refused to move to the back of the bus, and this helped spur the Montgomery bus strike and the Montgomery sit-in. Segregation was ending throughout at least the North and parts of the South, but it was still prevalent. And then television meant the rest of the world watched as America destroyed itself over racism. So before the advent of television, people could only hear about what was happening. With now television being so widespread throughout the country and the world, people could see just how bad the violence and racism was, especially throughout the American South. So I have a couple questions that I want you to answer in your blog and then think about when we come into class tomorrow. So the first one is, what aspects of the story cut across time? I want you to look at the novel, think about all the themes we talked about yesterday, about the issues portrayed in the novel between poverty, racism, violence, and I want you to answer the question to the best of your ability about which of those do you think is still going on and how so. Also, please try to cite modern examples of the issues you think are still happening. And the second question, I want you to compare Macomb to the city or town you grew up in, noting similarities and differences. So the town you're in right now may not be where you grew up for most of your life. I want you to think back and look at, the friends you were around, the people you're around. Was it a big city, a small city? I want you to look at it compared to Macomb and then write about it in your blog. So just as an overview again, so Harper Lee was born in the 1920s in Alabama, which happens to be the exact setting of the novel. During this time period, you had the KKK, the Jim Crow laws, and the beginning of violence by the KKK out in the open. So look at all of those and write your questions, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.